What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Going the Distance podcast presented by ImmaculateSports.com. Twitter's at ImmacSports.
Instagram is also at Max Sports.
TikTok, YouTube, Immaculate Sports. It's episode 289, and it's a big week. It's draft week. We got about 49 hours until the draft in Pittsburgh. Raiders are picking one, Jets are picking two, so it doesn't get any more exciting than this.
Yeah, lined up pretty well. The drafted with how our teams are. Obviously, this means that our teams were terrible last year, which is really nothing new for the both of us. Might as well just change to the misery podcast with the way that our teams have been in our lifetime. But hopefully that changes. And it starts this week with potentially, drafting a couple people at the top of the draft that will change your franchise for a long time. We'll get into those picks. One's a little bit more obvious than the others, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Before we have the opener, and the NBA playoffs are getting started. We did our playoff, or you did your playoff prediction last week. I kind of just sat here and listened. But yeah, you got an opener about it.
Yeah, so my opener, other than beating Seattle last night, which I'm sure you'll mention in a second here, shout out to the A's. I have half sarcastically, the NBA playoffs are actually entertaining because I actually did enjoy the regular season despite some of the missed time from the superstars. The playoffs have been great. Even though the Warriors aren't there, there's some really intense series to kick it off to, like Knicks Celtics. How about CJ McCollum last night going absolutely crazy? Like anybody could have picked up this guy. He's been on the trade block for 3 seasons. And Atlanta's cashing in. How about the 8-seeded Orlando Magic beating Detroit? I would imagine Detroit bounces back really quickly, but hey, Orlando's a team. When they're hot, no one really plays defense quite like them. And then even like Lakers Rockets, the Lakers win game 1, but it's so messy with no stars playing. KD's out. LeBron was carrying the force there with Luke Kennard led them in scoring with Luka out. So I'm actually enjoying it a lot, even though most of my friends are watching more hockey.
Yeah, I've tuned in a little bit for the NBA playoffs. They're very accessible. Just turn on NBC and it's there. Definitely watched the end of last night's game between Minnesota and the Nuggets with Jamal Murray. Just like an aggravated shot to take with 10 seconds left in the game. And even as a Warrior fan, I probably want to see the Nuggets lose in that series. I'd like to see Ant go far in this playoff run, but man, I'd be furious if I was a Denver Nuggets fan and you saw somebody take a shot, that late in the game, deep mid-range. Just doesn't make any sense. Moving on, though, for me, my opener is going to be the A's finding a way to compete even with a bad offensive start. If you told me that the A's would be 21st in WRC plus as a team and 25th in ERA, like, well, here we go again. This is kind of exactly what your worst nightmare was, that the hitting just wasn't going to be able to keep up and the pitching just wasn't going to be good enough to win games in general. Surprisingly, the pitching, while they've had some bad games, I think they've allowed 10 runs 3 or 4 times at least this year. They've also found a way to have a lot of really competitive games on the pitching side as well too, which kind of makes that ERA not look as competitive as it actually is. On the hitting, while it's been a slow start, it feels like it's starting to tick up. Nick Kurtz has walked more than anybody else in the league. He's very silently OPS'd over 1,000 in the last 15 games. And it seems like the A's offense is slowly starting to get around. Big thanks to Carlos Cortez as well, too, who's been great to start off the season. Some of his numbers are really encouraging to look at. Another encouraging number to look at is Jacob Wilson's defensive improvement, which I think could have been another thing in my opener, is that he's jumped up a ton in 2025 to 2026. We know defensive improvements or getting worse at it as well too isn't really a linear thing that happens in baseball. It kind of just happens out of nowhere. Like Bobby Witt was an average defender one year, and the next thing you know, he's a top shortstop in the league when it comes to defense. Last year, Jacob Wilson, -3 outs above average. This year, already 3 outs above average. That's plus, not negative. 97th percentile in that right now. When it comes to all fielders, he's been visually good as a defender as well too. I think sometimes you get lost in those advanced statistics and kind of just like you can't really see exactly what's going on, but I think you can visually see a defensive improvement with him when you watch him play. Getting better jumps, quicker to the ball, and more accurate throws as well too. So Jacob Wilson, even though the bat hasn't really gotten crazy going, shout out to him on defense. Shout out to the A's, first place A's right now. Big series up in Seattle. Just took the first of three last night, and hopefully they can take a second and maybe a third tomorrow in these next couple of days.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on.
Wilson basically saying, like, I don't care who you trade for, you got to drag me at a shortstop right now, which is awesome.
Yeah, I'll take it. It's a good decision. It's a good, tough decision to have for the A's front office on whether they want to put Leo at second, third, shortstop, move Jacob Wilson. Who knows? I think prototypically, I'd say Leo's probably shortstop and Wilson's a third baseman long term, just based off of their athleticism. But who knows? Things change. And Jacob Wilson is definitely making a case for saying, I want to be a shortstop for the next 7 years with this roster. Moving on, though, to where's your head at before we get into the first round mock. The player, pitcher, rookie of the week, as we always do during the MLB season. Starting off with the player of the week is who?
I got honorable mentions to a lot of guys. Shout out to Mike Trout, Yordan Alvarez, Kurtz, who you were just talking about, even Dalton Rushing just had a 4-for-4 game again. But it's going to his teammate, Max Muncy of the Dodgers, that is, on a completely different level. 183 OPS plus this season with insane power mixed in with those multiple 4-for-4 games himself, just like Dalton Rushing. But this week he hits 10 for 20, 4 homers, 3 walks. He's super locked in, not digressing at all like some people hinted at in the offseason.
Yeah, 10 for 20 for Max Muncy. He's my player of the week as well, too, for the Dodgers. 4 homers, a double, 2 walks. Doesn't get Rockies taxed or Coors taxed here, considering they had a 4-game series in Colorado for part of this. So, I mean, I guess you could go – you could make a case for Yordan if you wanted to go that way, but I did go Max Muncy as well, too. Yordan will definitely get this award at some point in the year with how he's been playing. Pitcher of the week.
Yeah, pitching across Major League Baseball starting to tighten up. Not as many 12 to 10 games last week, just because so many guys have been locked in. I feel like Imanaga is always throwing a gem when I check out the Cubs. Ohtani and Skubal are just freaks of nature. But I felt like the most dominant game was from a rookie. Welcome back, Parker Messick.
Yeah, Parker Messick was really good. 8 no-hit innings before he allowed those 2 runs in the top of the 9th, which weren't really all his kind of inherited runners that turned into runs that went on to his stats instead of somebody else's. I did go Seth Lugo for my pitcher of the week. 2 really good starts for somebody who a lot of people kind of had as a fall-off candidate this year. He's been steady Eddie, as he's always kind of been in that Royals rotation. We'll just go take the ball for 6 to 7 innings, punch out 5-6 guys, and move on to the next start. In his 2 starts this week, 13 2/3 innings pitched, only 6 hits allowed, 1 earned run, 14 Ks. Of course, the Royals lose both of those games because they are on an 8-game losing streak, but Seth Lugo is not the reason why that's happening. It's their offense for sure. But shout out to Seth Lugo. He'll get my pitcher of the week. Rookie of the week.
Yeah, that's also going to be Parker Messick. Brings that no-hitter into the 9th, 9 Ks against Baltimore. Unfortunately, loses it, and then Cade. Dude, I ended up having this like minus 8-point swing in fantasy. I had Parker Messick, and the guy I was playing had Cade. And he gets more points out of that situation, at least in the 9th inning. But back on track here. Amazing stuff from a rookie and a real throwback prospect. I saw a lot of Mark Burley comparisons on Twitter, and I'm thinking like, yeah, but Mark Burley didn't sit 97, did he? Honorable mention to Sal Stewart, but Parker Messick's been unbelievable.
My rookie of the week is going to be someone who inflicted a lot of pain on me this past week, Munetaka Murakami. He goes 6 for 18, 3 homers, 7 RBIs, 5 walks as well, too. Very good series against the A's. Just a sweet and easy swing. Good matchups against the A's as well, too. He dominated us over the weekend. And what was a pretty tough weekend for the A's, losing 2 out of 3 to the Sox.
I kind of tuned him out, if you can't tell.
Yeah, that's fair. I probably should have had Parker Messick in there as well, too, at some point. But, Yeah, he'll get this award at some point. I think he got it last year a
Probably.
couple of times, even in the short month that he was up. But moving on to our first round mock. Draft is on Thursday, like you mentioned, just about 48, 49 hours away. I don't want to do the coming to the podium for Roger Goodell. But we'll start it off smooth and easy.
Okay.
Pick number one for the Raiders. No trades in this. Thought about it, but it would have been very complicated if we decided to do trades. And who do you have picking here? I don't know. So everything's the same. Pick number one, the Raiders. They rush this pick to the podium, I'd imagine.
Yes, they do. I am going to be mostly predictive with this mock draft. I want to get them right, of course, but this is a very unique draft class. Most of the value is going to be in some weird spots. Like, how shocked would you really be if, like, some of the guards and Jacob Rodriguez ended up being the best players in the class? So I think things could end up getting wild and unpredictable. But number one is all but done at this point. They traded their quarterback. They hire a new offensive mind. This is all from Fernando Mendoza right here.
Yeah, finally it's happening on Thursday, you'd imagine. Fernando Mendoza becomes a Raider and instantaneously becomes like a top 5 jersey sell in the league with a Raider QB with a Hispanic last name. Number 2, the Jets. A couple of different options here. Seems like David Bailey or Arvell Reese. Who'd you choose? And was it a heart decision? Was it a head decision? What do you think?
It sounds like it's Reese versus Bailey. At least that's what they've been saying for the past month. And the Jets canceled their visit with David Bailey this week, too, which was weird. I personally still have no issue with Reuben Bain this high, but it sounds like Reese is going to be the safer pick here, being the most explosive defensive player, at least who they think is, who can also rush the passer, something that Sonny Styles cannot do. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be someone from Ohio State. I took Arvell Reese.
Yeah, it's very interesting this time of the year because your mock drafts aren't just based off of feel; it's based off of narrative a ton as well too. David Bailey feels like the guy that they will take in my eyes, just because it's the Jets and they seem to do the thing that people don't want them to do more often than not. But I did go Arvell Reese. Maybe a little bit of wishful thinking. I think he's going to be one of the best players in this class, if not the best. And I think it makes a lot of sense for the Jets to take him at 2. Number 3.
All right, number 3 with the Cardinals. I didn't do any trades, of course, but I have highlighted a couple spots where they probably want to try to do something here. I think Arizona does want to trade, take a tackle, and Ty Simpson. Kansas City might be the only team that wants to do this, though. So I took Francis Mauigoa here because I think wherever they do end up picking Arizona, O-line's gonna be the choice over Jeremiah Love. That's just what I would do, I think, if I was them.
Yeah, a lot of different options here. This is definitely a key trade spot. I went with a quarterback on defense, Sonny Styles. Just, I don't know, feels like a pick that could happen. The Cardinals kind of do whatever in this spot. So I know it's a brand new scheme, but maybe they want a quarterback on the defensive side. And I think Sonny Styles brings that exact kind of mock to it. So on to number 4 with the Tennessee Titans.
I bet Robert Saleh would be pounding the table for David Bailey here if the Jets don't take him. But I don't think it's necessarily his call like it was with the Jets and with the Niners. I think Tennessee, once again, becoming a power run team would actually make sense for them this time around, just like they did it with Mike Vrabel. I did it. It took Jeremiah Love. I'm not sure if it's the 100% smartest thing to do with 3 running backs on the roster, but I think he's probably the best player in the class.
Yeah, I wanted to go Jeremiah Love for 3 or 4. I just didn't because, I don't know, he feels like a guy who's going to be really, really good, and you know that, but slips a little bit on draft day for some reason. So I did go David Bailey. I do think that really matches what Saleh wants to do, big physical edge, and David Bailey's kind of exactly that. So Tennessee takes David Bailey from Texas Tech at 4. Brings us to number 5 with the Giants, who now have 2 picks in the top 10 at 5 and number 10. Their first pick in the first round is who?
There are 2 different approaches to this first round. There are the teams that stick to the board, and they're the teams that want to try to get experimental on defense. And ever since Harbaugh took over the Giants, the three names I've heard have been Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, Mansour Delane. I took Sonny Styles here. I think he definitely could go before. The Giants could get weird and go O-line, but I feel like I've had Sonny Styles here for a while, and I'm not going to move it.
Yeah, Sonny Styles is off the board for me. I feel like the Giants are a team that have a ton of needs, which I don't really think it played into their reasoning for trading Dexter Lawrence. I feel like that kind of just came spree of the moment, kind of had to do what you had to do and get the best that you could, which I think they turned out pretty well with the number 10 pick. I want Carnell Tate, first receiver off the board at 5, maybe a little high for him from just what it feels like over the past month or so. But I do think he still is the first wide receiver off the board. I think he's the best wide receiver in this class. And I think the Giants are a team that definitely needs a wide receiver. So Carnell Tate from Ohio State at 5, which means 3 players from the top 5 from Ohio State for me. Number 6.
Number 6 with Cleveland. They probably also want to trade back here. But here's the thing about this draft. I'm expecting a crazy run on offensive tackle eventually at some point here. So I could see them taking one early because they also have picked 24. And I feel like there's a higher chance that a receiver is there. So I picked Monroe Freeling from Georgia because him and Caden Proctor are the more prototypical left tackles than someone like Fano or Vega, probably going to play guard, at least to start their career. So for that reason, I took Monroe Freeling, maybe a couple spots higher than he is on the big board. But when you're Cleveland, you just gotta get some help on the offense however you can.
Yeah, Cleveland is happy with their pick in my eyes because Maui Noah falls to them at 6. They rush Sicard to the podium, kind of get a tone setter on the offensive line. Number 7 with the Commanders.
All right. I got Washington going Carnell Tate, wide receiver, Ohio State. Rumor mill says this is the number 1 guy on their board. Maybe Jeremiah Love, but I know their defense sucks, so anything's possible with Washington, but more stability around Jaden Daniels is a win here.
Number 7, best player available for me. I went Caleb Downs. I know safeties don't go super high in the draft, but Caleb Downs really does feel like a transformative player on your defense. And Washington definitely needs that, especially with Dallas and Philly usually having some pretty high-powered offenses. So good way for Washington to compete is getting a safety that can do it all on the field. And hopefully he's not like Isaiah Simmons pick that we thought was can't miss and turned into can't hit no matter how you play him. So Caleb Downs at number 7 feels really, really good and feels like my first BPA on the board. Number 8 with the Saints.
With the Saints, I'm going David Bailey, edge Texas Tech. I don't dislike David Bailey as a prospect, but I think there's a chance he is a guy who falls below linebackers and like even just picks Caleb Downs, the safety. It's just that there's a chance he's a third down specialist. And so I'm sure New Orleans would love to take that risk if the draft is falling this way. I'm just not going to do it in the top 5 with him.
Number 8 is where I did go Jeremiah Love, Notre Dame running back to the Saints. This is a spot where it's like if he doesn't go, then we might – and if he doesn't go in the first 7 picks besides this, then we might be looking at damn, this guy just fell to where in the draft? To 15, 16, 17? Like, it's possible if he doesn't go here that happens, I think. Although I think he'd also be a guy that teams would be very willing to trade up for if they need a running back. This scenario, obviously no trades, but Saints end that regardless. They take Jeremiah Love at 8 and get the running back of the future who's not 30 years old and looks to be very explosive in a Kellen Moore offense. That when he had an explosive running back, won the Super Bowl in Philly. Number 9 with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Number 9, Kansas City. Their fans will tell you if you give them an offensive lineman that you are completely off and they will attack you. But I went Spencer Fano from Utah. I just think it's the right way to go. Who knows if there's going to be anyone there at pick 29. Like I said, I'm predicting a crazy run on tackles. If Fano could plug right into right tackle, just maul in the run game, I think that would help. Andy Reid needs to get back to that power run if he ever wants to go back to the Super Bowl. I think Patrick Mahomes can't be throwing 58 times a game. He's going to get hurt again.
Chiefs always seem to have the pick where it's like, oh, that guy's still on the board. I really hope he does not get picked here. And then he gets picked here. Happened with Xavier Worthy a few years ago. There's a couple other guys that I just can't think of at this time. Karlaftis kind of felt like that. I feel like,
even McDuffie.
Like 5-6 years ago with Karlaftis, McDuffie, and Ruben Bain is still on the board at number 9 for me. I know there's some serious stuff with him, but serious stuff have never scared the Chiefs away because they employ Rashee Rice. So Ruben Bain goes number 9, edge from Miami, one of the best players in this class, to the Chiefs, and that immediately scares me again because what the hell? Number 10, the Giants with their second first-round pick.
With the second pick, I decided to double up on defense, going Mansour Delane over Caleb Downs here. Caleb Downs is intriguing, but Delane has been by far the most highly touted outside corner for the entire season. The Giants do have Javon Holland, and I know like in today's game, you would love to have 3 safeties, but I don't think it's necessary for them to try to find their Kyle Hamilton right now or they're screwed. I think Mansour Delane could step in, take over for Cordell Flott, and replace the defense like he never left because he's a much better prospect.
Number 10, I did go safety for the Giants. Caleb Downs is gone for me. So I went with the guy who's kind of had a riser of the last couple months, Dylan Thieneman from Oregon. There's always a couple of guys each year that when the college football season ends, they're fringe first rounders, and then they jump into the top 15, top 10. Dylan Thieneman's really the main guy, I'd say, for that this year. Maybe a couple others that we'll get into in a little bit, but he's a guy that I go with at 10, and I don't think if you told me this 3 months ago, I'd believe you. So he becomes the Dexter Lawrence, I guess, technically, in New York. Number 11, the Miami Dolphins.
I'll get to Dylan Thieneman eventually, but on my board, Caleb Downs is still here. So Miami takes him. The roster is fucked, and I don't think that's just my Jets goggles on either. I think they need to be careful with this pick, and I think they do want to be a defensive-minded team. So I went with the best defensive player left. Some concerns about his knee, but it's nothing like Jermon McCoy, who I'm sure we'll mention at some point today. So I think Caleb Downs still does go top 12.
If Mike McDaniel was still the head coach, I think it's Fano or Ione or Monroe Freeling, but he's not the head coach anymore. It's Jeff Hafley. Mansour Delane's still on the board. They go ahead and take him at 11. Seems pretty simple to me. Mm-hmm. Number 12, the Dallas Cowboys have their first of 2 first-round picks in the draft.
The Cowboys could get weird here. They could. They could do literally anything. But Ruben Bain is a beast, and he's still here. He falls to a team who still needs to replace Micah Parsons. This is something I would do very quickly. There's a lot of change in Dallas, but you would think by now they've been able to figure out how to bring in a guy like this and make sure that never happens again.
Number 12, I went Akeem Mesidor to the Cowboys. He's been a guy who I've always liked, but he was really high up, it feels like, a year ago, then fell down a little bit, and now has gotten back into that top 15 territory. When we did this 3 months ago, I forget exactly when we did it, I had the Cowboys taking 2 edge rushers with their first picks. They definitely take one here with their first in my eyes. Akeem Mesidor is a pick for me. Number 13, the Los Angeles Rams are picking 13th because the Falcons are the Falcons. But the Rams have picked 13. Who do you have them taking here?
I got them taking Mekhi Lemon, the wide receiver from USC. Mekhi Lemon is a prototypical Rams receiver made in a laboratory, 4.5 speed, but will block harder than most tight ends. And, being all in, they could definitely trade this pick for another player. They just did that with Kansas City. But wide receiver 3 is pretty ugly. I really think someone's going to take these receivers, even though there's so many question marks in the media right now.
That wide receiver room would not be fun to game plan against. Even more so because it's McVay. I went with just a more plug and play. I mean, Mekhi Lemon's very plug and play, but Spencer Fano, I think, is kind of that same type of thing on the offensive line. The offensive line for the Rams is kind of old, kind of not super good. You have an aging quarterback who's never been the fastest on his feet, and I know he's still a very good playmaker, but get in a guy who can play guard, who can play tackle, Spencer Fanu, I think makes sense. So that's what they do at 13. Number 14, the Ravens.
I have the Ravens going also with a wide receiver, Jordan Tyson, Arizona State. We're going back to back here. Another guy who could fall because he missed so much time in college with his hamstring. But I believe you have seen this guy in person. He's just a demon route runner and probably wide receiver one potential. In a situation here, a draft class where there's not a whole lot of guys who could play that role for Lamar Jackson, I think they should probably just take the best offensive guy.
Yeah, I like Jordan Tyson. I'm not going to take him here, but I watched him play against Northern Arizona University, so he was very Jamar Chasey in that game, where you just kind of give him the ball and let him cook. But definitely a guy that can work in an NFL offense, which he will be taken in this first round, just not here at 14. I had the Ravens going interior offensive line because they just lost an interior offensive lineman. So Vega Ione is a guy that I picked here at 13 from 14 from Penn State, not to Penn State. To the Ravens at 14. Number 15, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
With Tampa Bay, I am going with a pass rusher not a lot of people have ranked at 15. Zion Young, Missouri. I was looking at the Bucs depth chart, and man, do these guys need some pass rushers. It was supposed to be the whole identity of this team. And I feel like defensive end is similar to tackle, where if you find that guy that fits your scheme, you just take him. You don't mess around. You just go with your guy rather than the best player. Zion Young, 6'6", way bigger than a speed rusher. But the point here is he was great at the Senior Bowl. Tampa has done this every year. They take the best guy from the Senior Bowl.
Tampa just lost a linebacker, Levante David. So they take a linebacker in C.J. Allen from Georgia. Kind of been known for a while. Seems like a guy that fits right into Tampa Bay. So not much analysis thinking into it. But now we get to another fun pick. The Jets' second first-round pick. Jeez, I'm all over the place today. I was about to say who they take right here, Joel, too. So I'll let you go now. Okay. The Jets at 16 is who?
Well, on my mock draft here, they get screwed on receiver, unfortunately. But I wanted to see where my head was at if no receivers fall, because that's probably what would happen in real life. So I always come prepared with a backup plan. This is where I have Dylan Thieneman, safety from Oregon. Dylan Thieneman has been a top 20 player for me since he was at Purdue. I feel like our GM, Darren Muji, is the kind of guy that will play the board rather than trade up and down and go crazy like Joe Douglas, our old GM, used to do. So I didn't reach for that next receiver. I took a position that we have been the absolute worst in the entire NFL at ever since we traded Jamal Adams, because I didn't have him going very early. But I like that you had that because Dylan Thieneman's a baller.
I also have DB. I didn't go wide receiver. I think there's more of a sweet spot in the second and third round for wide receivers. And I don't know if I love at 16 some of the guys here. I know Mekhi Lemon, Jordan Tyson are still on the board here. But I did go Jermon McCoy, cornerback from Tennessee. I mean, they traded for the pick by trading away Sauce Gardner. I don't know if he is Sauce Gardner. I think the Jets would be very content with that. But to go ahead and replace that position immediately in year one, I think makes sense. And Jermon McCoy is a guy who fits at pick 16 as well, too. So I think it's just a good marriage that could happen. Number 17, the Detroit Lions.
I've had Caden Proctor here for a very long time, and I'm going to keep it easy pick. Taylor Decker's gone. Penne goes over to left tackle. Caden Proctor goes over to right. This is the last of the elite tackles for me.
You had Monroe Freeling already going in here.
Yeah.
I didn't, so I have him going at 17. Tackle from Georgia. makes sense. Fits the Dan Campbell scheme. Number 18, the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, Minnesota, once again, I feel like I'm always giving them a DB. But there's another one we haven't talked about yet. Colton Hood, also from Tennessee. I don't know what to think about Jermon McCoy anymore. I listened to Todd McShay talk about it. He's someone you can usually trust. And if he doesn't think that Jermon McCoy is going to get drafted high, then I'll wait a little bit. Colton Hood, on the other hand, took over his spot at Tennessee. In McCoy's absence, he was amazing. The most impressive part of his college career, though, something I've told you before, 2 years ago, Colton Hood was at Colorado. He played opposite Travis Hunter and refused to be picked on. They made him go back to Travis Hunter.
My number 18 is the first non-Power 5 guy I have on here. You probably know what that means. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, who went with the same position here. Or same, not position, but I guess positional group, DB. Yeah. Big safety, 6'3", 200 pounds. Minnesota's defense is aging, always been kind of a turnover-led defense, and I think he's a guy. I don't know if he has a nickname yet, EMW. I don't know. Who knows? But I think it makes sense at 18. So, safety from Toledo. Number 19, the Carolina Panthers.
Not exactly sure what Carolina wants to do here. So this is another spot I went best player available. I went with Vega here, guard from Penn State. I think Vega's awesome. I think he could go much higher. It's just so hard to predict guard because it usually comes with a trade. I know for sure that Carolina loves Steeneman, but apparently everyone does too. So that's why I went with Vega here.
19, Bryce Young actually runs this pick into Roger Goodell to have him say it. Mekhi Lemon has not gone yet. He goes number 19. I think it makes a lot of sense, kind of the yin and yang with Teteroa or McMillan, where it's a really fast guy and then your big, deep receiver that you have in Teteroa. So Mekhi Lemon to the Panthers, and within 2 years, Bryce Young gets his receiver room completely rebuilt with first-round picks. Number 20, back to the Cowboys for their second first-round pick.
And I think this does depend on what happens with their first pick. I think if they end up with a pass rusher they like early on, they could definitely trade back because they don't have a ton of picks. But I ended up going with Avion Terrell, DB from Clemson. The Dallas secondary room has just become a complete embarrassment. So I think if they do end up with maybe not necessarily Reuben Bain like I did, but somebody that you trust, then you could go with DB. After that, Terrell can play outside just like his brother and be fine. But more importantly, he's very versatile, great at the nickel, racked up sacks in college, forced fumbles, all that good stuff.
I had in my first mock draft that we did, 2 edge rushers going in the first round. In this mock draft, I had Akeem Messidor going 12. I have Keldrick Falk going number 20. So double edge rusher stays the same. Just feels like something Jerry would do. And that's what I thought here, rather than who's the best player to take. What would Jerry do? And Jerry would take a second edge rusher. Number 21, the Pittsburgh Steelers are on the clock.
Yeah, the Pittsburgh left tackle of the future, Broderick Jones, has a pretty bad neck injury, and you don't play with offensive line in this league. So I went Blake Miller, teammate of Avion Terrell from Clemson. That's how you get people hurt, is by playing linemen that can't turn their head completely. Ty Simpson would be interesting here, but I don't think that they're interested themselves. So I just went with the boring pick, O-line again. And here comes the run of O-linemen.
I went with the story pick. Drafts in Pittsburgh. You need a quarterback. You take Ty Simpson at 21. Is it the right pick? I don't know. Probably not. Is it the guy that Mike McCarthy wants? Probably not either. But I think it's the pick that would be like, oh, that's a cool story to get drafted, and you're the quarterback and in the city that you're going to be playing at. And I think that makes sense. I don't know if he's even at the draft. Ty Simpson is probably the most, I wouldn't say polarizing player in this draft class, but has the widest range of possibilities where he can go. I thought about it at 3, and I realized I'm not that crazy. I can't do that. I thought about it at 16 with the Jets. I think he's a guy that could be traded up for, in the first 15 if a team really feels like they need to do it. But he's also a guy I could feel like goes in the second round at some point. there's a wide range of possibilities. If Dan Orlovsky was a GM, he'd be taking him at number one, which thank God he isn't. So Ty Simpson at 21 to the Steelers feels like the fun pick here, and that's what I decided to go with. As Aaron Rodgers, who knows what he's doing?
Who
So
knows?
maybe he sits as well too behind Kyler, but actually, wait, no, Kyler's in Minnesota.
Minnesota, yeah.
That doesn't make sense. Yeah. So maybe he plays. But on to 22 with the Chargers.
With the Chargers, I went with the first D tackle off the board, Caden McDonald. I think the Chargers want to stop the run. The only question is, will Jim draft someone from Ohio State? This DT class is pretty deep. There's not necessarily a tier list, just a bunch of guys who are massive. Like Lee Hunter, Texas Tech, is like ranked in the 50s. He was the best D lineman at the Senior Bowl. I haven't necessarily heard his name, so that's why I went with McDonald instead.
There's always a few guys every year where it's like they're not picked super high, but you just know that they're going to be good in the NFL. Cole Hamilton was one that just kind of stood out. Tyler Linderbaum was another one that stood out. You just knew that he was going to be good. Caden McDonald, you just know he's going to be good at football. And I think he fits perfectly for the Chargers. I know, like you said, kind of weird, Ohio State, Michigan. I don't know if he's picked anybody from Ohio State. We'll see. Or I won't see, actually. I probably won't look that up. But Caden McDonald, 22, makes a lot of sense, fits the Charger scheme. Just can Harbaugh break his allegiance? We'll see. On to 23 with the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right, with Philly, I'm going another O-lineman, Caleb Lomu from Utah. Talk about a team that needs to get back to running the football. I think Philly could start Lomu at right guard, eventually replace Lane Johnson in the future. A lot of these tackle prospects that I didn't take super high are because they're kind of Joe Tooney-esque. They're kind of, you got to start at guard, and then if, in 3 years, be like, hey, you ready to make some big money? You want to move over to tackle now? Just maybe not immediately. And it sounds like they're not going to be trading A.J. Brown until June, so I didn't do anything wide receiver-esque either.
Yeah, A.J. Brown stuff is weird. Seems like he's a Patriot at this point. Obviously, we don't see that for a couple of months, but what better way to fix it than go ahead and take Jordan Tyson from Arizona State at 23? I think it'd make a lot of sense. He kind of fits that A.J. Brown mold as well, too, a little bit. He's not as physical, but I do think there is that like rack ability of Jordan Tyson that we can see. And he's a guy that can kind of do it all as a wide receiver, and I think he can be a number one in a league. Even on a team that he doesn't really have to be the number one with Devonta Smith, I think we'll see him shine a little bit more. But a guy that you can just get the ball and let him cook. And I think Philly needs that after what's been going on this past year. Another team with their second first-round pick, feels like that's happening a lot this draft. Could have happened even more with the Ravens and the Raiders, but we won't get into that.
Yeah.
The Browns have 24th pick from Jacksonville. This is the pick that was in the Travis Hunter trade from last year, if I'm remembering correctly. Who did the Browns take at 24?
I had Cleveland going tackle early, and it definitely pays off here after 5 O-linemen go after Monroe Freeling. So I went Omar Cooper Jr. from Indiana. My receivers go pretty early too, I guess, at least the top 3. And Omar Cooper just gets open all the time. I don't know if I would take him at 12 or even 16 for the Jets, but Cleveland, like I said with the linemen, they can't really be picky when it comes to offense. That's what they need to take here. They need to find where the value is on offense.
I have the Browns going Denzel Boston, wide receiver from Washington. I had him going Maui Noah with the first pick. So they stick on the offensive side of the ball. I remember, what is it, 2020, 2019, where it was Judy, Ruggs, and CD that all kind of went super similar. For me, it's limit Tyson Boston, and we'll know if that happens, where it's this close that they get picked together, that they will be compared to one another forever and ever. That's not a bad thing. Denzel Boston, I think he's a good player. Good, easy wide receiver to throw to for a quarterback, outside the numbers, deep red zone threat. And so I think it makes sense for Cleveland to take him because they don't really have a wide receiver that I would trust, even though they technically have Jerry Jeudy. So what comes around goes around there. 25, Chicago Bears, are they going to take another tight end?
No, not this time. Even though Sadiq is still available for both of us. Interesting. I did, however, take a project, Jermon McCoy, DB Tennessee. Even though this does unfortunately sound like a Will Johnson situation, I still have McCoy going in the first. This Bears defense won games by taking risks, so it felt like a suitable spot for him. At the worst, he's a Nashawn Wright replacement. Actually, the worst is his knee doesn't work, but we just got to find out when he gets out there, man. It's one of those things. He's missing cartilage in his knee, like a freak birth defect or something, and the NFL teams are worried. But I still have him 25 to the Bears.
25 to the Bears. They lost some O-linemen this past year. So I went Emmanuel Pregnon from Oregon, guard. Feels like a Ben Johnson type pick. I don't feel like he's going to want to take a first rounder on defense. Just knowing Ben Johnson. So I did have him going offense, and I have him going guard from Oregon. 26, the Buffalo Bills.
I got Buffalo taking Emmanuel McNeil Warren, a safety from Toledo. This was a big Thieneman spot for me for most of the year, but seems like he's surpassed this spot in the draft. The biggest thing I noticed watching Buffalo last season is they just don't have any playmakers on defense anymore. McNeil Warren is a freak. He's got some insane clips at Toledo. He could play an Emenwari role for these guys. Big like a linebacker, but quick enough to move to free safety on third down. He could just do it all.
26 for the Bills. I think if it goes this way, how I have it, probably be a prime spot to trade down. I don't really think there's anything at 26 that's super eye-popping for them. I was thinking wide receiver, but didn't want to push Omar Cooper here. So I went Peter Woods, interior defensive lineman from Clemson. Just said, up the trenches when there's nothing else to do. So I think Buffalo's a team that doesn't have a ton of needs, and I think it makes sense here. I didn't like any of the or there's a tackle here that's still left, but I didn't have him take him. So Peter Woods from Clemson at 26, which takes us to 27 with the Niners.
27 with the Niners is fun. I've been mocking O-line all year, but they're mostly gone now. And after talking with Brett today, I think in this situation, they would go best player available. Keldrick Falk, still on the board for me. Big man out of Auburn. Pass rushers will eventually go. So the Niners switch their plans here, and ChatGPT will tell them to take Keldrick Falk because he's much bigger. He's 280 pounds with an 11-sack season in college. So just some extra insurance for Nick Bosa, even if Michael Walker's pretty similar to this. Or Williams, not Walker. Yeah.
I went BPA here as well, too, but my BPA is a little bit different. Kyle Shanahan's just salivated. Think about this pick because Kenyon Sadiq is still available. George Kittle's in his 30s now and is just, tore his Achilles last year?
Yeah.
Tore his ACL, one of the big two. Who knows what he returns like? Obviously, I don't think anybody's like, oh, yeah, George Kittle's done. But he obviously isn't going to be super, as good as he was 10 years ago or 5 years ago in these next 3 years. I don't think there's any problem with running two tight ends. His buddy Sean McVay does it all the time. And for a team that doesn't have a ton of standout wide receivers, getting a weapon like Kenyon Sadiq, I think, makes a lot of sense. They've picked at Oregon as well, too, before the past. I think it makes sense here. Pro-style offense. So Kenyon Sadiq, Oregon's kind of pro-style, but yes and no at times. But
They're
regardless, Kenyon Sadiq goes to the Niners at 27. 28, the Houston Texans.
One of my favorite guys to watch on the offensive line, Max Ihanicher, offensive tackle, Arizona State. He's a 6'7" freak athlete who's only played football for about 2.5 seasons. So the potential is unlimited with this guy. Also, Houston can't win any more playoff games if CJ Stroud is dead. Just take it O-lineman, please.
I went O-lineman. I went with a guy I've never heard of before, Chase Bizantis from Texas A&M.
Yeah.
It's more of a need pick, really, than, I think this guy's going to work great here. Because I don't know who this guy is. I don't know what he looks like. But I think it makes sense. Take a guard for a team that's always had a shitty O-line. Number 29, was the Rams pick, is the Chiefs pick now from the Trent McDuffie trade. So who do they take here at 29?
You're not going to like this. I gave Kansas City Kenyon Sadiq. Kansas City,
same type of pick as mine. Just
it is
another team I dislike.
But the reason why I decided not to give him to the Niners is because I feel like there definitely could be a trade involved with Kenyon Sadiq to Kansas City. I really have no idea what's going to happen with tight end in this draft, but Kansas City has the ability to be very aggressive and get this guy.
I don't like this pick either, but I'm going to do it. Colton Hood, Tennessee corner. Another one of those just like, yeah, falls to Kansas City type of guys. I mean, there's a few guys on here. I think 30, 31, and 32 I kind of even like better than Kansas City, so maybe it's just me wanting them to take a player that I don't like as much. But Colton Hood's really good, like you talked about with him and Jermon McCoy earlier. Another corner from Tennessee. And our honorary Vols fan and Alex Malave is happy here. Number 30, this is the Jalen Waddle pick, I believe, to the Miami Dolphins, who have also their second first-round pick and the final second first-round pick of teams in this draft.
The first pick, I went Caleb Downs. I agree. I think they're going best player available on defense if someone does fall to them. Here, I am going to take receiver with the Jalen Waddle pick, but I'm not taking Denzel Boston. I'm going to give him KC Concepcion from NC State and Texas A&M. Malik Willis has got to throw the ball to somebody, and if their O-line sucks again, then why not draft the best rack guy?
Forgot Malik Willis is their quarterback.
Yeah.
I went another DB. I went Mansour Delane in the first pick. I went Avion Terrell with the second pick here at 30. There's a lot of holes on defense, and it helps your defensive line when you have corners that can cover. Usually they don't cover that well in year one, but that's okay because I think everybody understands that the Dolphins are not a team that is going to be going crazy this next year. And Avion Terrell and Mansour Delane, I think, are a good start on the defensive side at least. Number 31, the New England Patriots.
Yeah, the Patriots get Akeem Mesidor here for me. Like I was saying with Kedrick Falk, edge doesn't necessarily fall all the time, but this has happened before. Like, Nolan Smith a couple years ago, playoff hero falls to a team that was literally just in the Super Bowl. So Mesidor might be 25 already, but that's younger than the guys on the trade block. So I think he will end up going in the first round somewhere.
Patriots get a good player. Seems like it happens for both of us. Caden Proctor is the pick for me. He's still available. I don't know if that happens in too many simulations or multiverses here because Caden Proctor is a really good player. I think he's a guy that teams are willing to trade up for as well too. Coming from Alabama, goes into New England. We know they kind of need some offensive help there or offensive line help there, and I think it makes sense for him to go ahead and be a Patriot, considering they also technically don't have AJ Brown, but they also kind of sort of do. So I didn't go wide receiver. Number 32, Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks make their first pick after being the champions of Super Bowl. Last pick in the first round, final pick you get to mock until I don't know. What are you going to do your first 2027 mock draft? Next week?
I got to, right? I'll make sure to send it to you. Way too early.
All right, number 32. Who is it?
I think Seattle's definitely going to trade this pick, but I wanted to find someone who was a good fit for him. So I went with Keith Abney II, another player from Arizona State. This guy's a nickel corner. A lot of chatter here with Keith Abney. Maybe it's just second-round chatter, but that's why I think they're going to trade it. Keith Abney's been talked about a lot like a Kenny Moore type player, and Seattle didn't only just lose their running back, their edge rusher, their corner. They also lost Kobe Bryant, one of their most versatile players. So this is a guy who could play safety or corner. I don't think it's Jadarian Price necessarily, even though it would be fun. So I went defense here with the first pick.
At 32, usually it's a tough pick because Super Bowl champions don't have a lot of needs. I think Seattle embodies that pretty well. I know they lost a few players in free agency and whatnot, but I still think their team is obviously really, really good. I had this pick the first time around, I think, so I stick with it. smaller guy, but it could be a nickel. But also, I think he definitely has the mentality of being an outside corner. D'Angelo Pons is who I picked. National champion at Indiana, goes to Super Bowl champion in the Seattle Seahawks. We know this guy, if he was 6'3" or 6'3" might be pushing it, but 6'2", 6'1", he's probably a top 10 pick. And don't think there's any debate in that, but being 5'9", 5'8", who knows what I was going to say is ABS measurement, but that's the wrong sport. Who knows how he would go. But D'Angelo Pons, I think, is still a very talented player, got the mentality down, and I think it fits in Seattle with the Mike McDonald defense. So that does it. Thursday, we'll find out if we are all correct, if we're all wrong. Hopefully we're not all wrong. Hopefully we at least have number one right.
Yes. And two, please.
But the second half. And two. I'd be okay with that. But the second half, you have something in here.
I got one thing because it impacts all of us. Steve Kerr might retire. He might. After the game on, I think it was Friday night against Phoenix, they lost. They just didn't have enough juice. Everybody looked banged up. Steve Kerr was hugging Steph. He was hugging Draymond. They pulled him out of the game early. It was this big moment. And then everybody started texting me like, uh-oh, is Steve Kerr done? And then, the next day he has this media day where he's saying, yeah, I'm not under contract. I don't know what I'm going to do. And then the day after that, the Warriors come out and say, we want to look at Todd Golden from Florida to be our coach. And then the day after that, today, Billy Donovan leaves the Bulls. Looks like he might be going to Florida. So it's a lot in a short amount of time. But if that's the end of Steve Kerr, that was a great run, man. I loved Steve Kerr the whole time, even though he had some crazy rotations sometimes, some interesting moves. That guy knows how to win a championship, and he taught that to Steph and Draymond and Clay 100% because they won a ton of games together.
Yeah. I'll start with Billy Donovan because I'm sure you saw my text this morning. I didn't even realize he was the Bulls coach, and he's been there for 6 years. Billy Donovan, I've always thought very highly of. If he's somehow a candidate for this, I'd be okay with that. Steve Kerr, though, always a coach that, or not always, but I think especially in the past 5 years, he's gotten a lot of heat. Like, oh, you're just a product of your environment. And sure, I think you can agree with that to some extent, but Steve Kerr's always been very appreciative. He's always said, he's the luckiest person of all time when it comes to his playing and coaching career, of who he's gotten to be around, being around MJ, and obviously being around Steph, KD. I don't think anybody else really fits into that MJ tier. I wasn't going to say Draymond or Clay there, even though obviously they come to mind as well too. But yeah, great run. If this is it, I think it makes sense. I know Steph has said that he didn't want to play for any other coach, I think, but I think that's something that you say and then something that you kind of look back when it happens and you're like, I don't know if I'm ready to play in Charlotte yet. And I don't want Steph to go anywhere, obviously. I don't want him to have a year in Charlotte, even though I think it'd be very cool. I want him to have his whole career as a Warrior. It's very rare for that happen in the NBA or in any sport for that. Tim Duncan, Kobe Bryant, like you think of those guys and you think their team. You think LeBron, obviously think of his greatness and whatnot, but you think of the Cavs, you think of eventually the Lakers, you think of the Heat. And I want Steph to just be, there is no Wizards MJ in here. This is just Steph with the Warriors. So hopefully it stays like that. Draymond, gotta imagine if there's a new coach, Draymond's going to the Lakers or something to go play with Bron. Yeah, I mean, it's a good story. I don't know. Definitely think change is necessary for the Warriors. I swear, if it's like Doc Rivers or something, like, that'd be so bad. That would not work, no. That would be so bad if that happened.
Draymond needs to be the coach.
Whoa.
On-court coach.
Yeah, that would be something. I think he'd be down for it, though. Go get Dan Hurley. I don't know. Maybe that's a Tony Vitello situation there. That'd be crazy, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know any prospect coaches either. I don't know the Ben Johnson or Clint Kubiak of what's going on here, but interesting story and definitely something that we'll look at in the coming weeks and probably expect the Shams breaking here in the next couple of weeks with that.
Yep.
Moving on, Layups Bowl predictions last week. It was a good week for us. We went 3 out of 4, and we found a method. Picking the Milwaukee Brewers over the Toronto Blue Jays. I had them on Wednesday. Skylar had them on Thursday for our layups.
Same score.
Those both go with green. Very nice by us. So maybe something to lean on there. This week, I went Kansas City over Baltimore on Wednesday. This is, I know it's Chris Bassett for Baltimore, and I'm blanking now on who's starting for Kansas City. Kansas City's lost a ton of games in a row. They're currently losing right now, even with Chris Bubich on the mound. It is Bassett versus Waka. Michael Waka's been amazing to start off the season. He was a guy who I also thought about taking for my pitcher of the week as well too. He's in a 6 innings quality start guy. Get in, get your business, and get out. And Chris Bassett's been really, really bad. I don't know if it's a Samuel Basayo thing that he just doesn't trust him back there, but he hasn't been good in his first handful of starts with Baltimore. So I did go Kansas City over Baltimore on Wednesday in what seems like the game that will have to end their streak.
Yep. Similar strategy for me. Once again, on a similar page, I am taking the New York Mets, who have lost 11 games in a row, to win on Friday, but they are playing Colorado and they're at home. So no funny business over there. Freddie Peralta against Lorenzen. I love Lorenzen, but Freddie Peralta's due. I think there are way too many games where Freddie's gone 5 innings, 1 run, and then they blow it. Just let him go the whole game this time, and they will beat Colorado.
Last week, bowl predictions. I had the Angels over the Yankees on Wednesday. The Yankees walked that off in the 9th inning after the Angels were up in the 9th. Regardless, Angels had a really good series in New York. How they've played to start off the year has been kind of surprising and eye-opening for some teams or some fans, I guess. The lineup's been really good. Skyler had Texas win on Friday at Seattle. That's the only game they won in the series, so good pick there. This week, I have Colorado over the San Diego Padres on Thursday. This is Matt Waldron versus Ryan Feltner. Ryan Feltner's not officially the starter yet, but ESPN slates him as it. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll take that. Waldron got blown up in his first start against the Angels. Pitching in Colorado, I don't know how that affects the knuckleball, but I mean, can't help it, right? So Ryan Feltner's a guy who's got good stuff. I think he's due for a good start. The San Diego lineup isn't anything that I'm like saying this team is going to win a World Series about. So I think it's a good opportunity for Colorado to go win a game. They just had a series split against the Dodgers over the weekend and Monday as well too. So I have Colorado getting a win on Thursday against the Padres.
My bold prediction is draft related. I was just messing around looking at some odds earlier, and I saw Kansas City. First drafted player as an O-lineman for the Chiefs is plus 250 right now, and still the best odds for them, which no one else is like this at all. It's all, plus 100 because no one actually knows anything. But I just think to myself, if Andy Reid is really in charge of this pick right now, what is the one thing he would want to fix about his team? It's that the O-line sucks. So that's what I'm picking here.
That's going to do it for episode 289. Next week, I don't know about grades for every pick, but we'll probably talk our favorites, our least favorites, our surprising, our no-brainers, whatever comes to mind for the draft. Obviously, we'll be through the 250 picks that will happen, 260 picks. Yeah. I don't know. So that'll be fun. Maybe we'll do our first rendition of MLB Awards of the season. That's always fun. Early season awards where you look back in October at your awards in April and you're like, what the hell? PCA was my MVP? That's crazy. Not this year, but last year we were talking about that. And maybe that's Jordan doesn't really fit into that. Who knows? We'll talk about that next week, perhaps. Maybe power rankings as well, too. That's kind of due. Any closing remarks?
Yeah, if anyone gets swept in the NBA playoffs, we'll know about it by Tuesday. I'm sure we'll mention it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, let's go A's.
Let's go A's. Big week. 2 more in Seattle and then 3 this weekend in Globe Life Field. Globe Life Park? Globe Life Field? I think it's Field. One of the two. I wish we were playing on the open air one though. I miss the old Globe Life.
I like
They
old
don't do it
Texas.
like they do anymore.
Yeah.
I miss the jet stream in right field.
I miss Shea Stadium.
That's not even there. Yeah, that's gone. They don't even hold UFL games there like they do at Globe Life Park.
That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh well. We'll see you guys next week. Go A's. Hopefully that Geloff can get a hit this week.
Let's do it, Zach.